Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. It's a party, y'all, and we're dressed to the nines. We're looking funky, funky fresh, and we're feeling divine. We're going to the movies to make the good times last. So welcome, y'all, to Backlook Cinema, the podcast. My name is Zoe. It's spelled Z to the O or Z-O for those of you outside of the U.S. It's the 129th episode. Thank you for downloading or streaming. We really appreciate it. We watch movies of yesteryear that I loved when I was growing up in the late 1900s. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that thief who robs from the rich and gives to the poor about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. And now, I have for you a very special person that I'd like you to meet. Whether she's doing a deep dive into comics, reporting the freshest movie news, or she's interviewing accomplished filmmakers, you can count on my next guest to give it to you straight and look good doing it. Ladies, gentlemen, and genders across the spectrum, please welcome the esteemed noblewoman of nerddom, Danielle Soncasie. So, being that you have blended, in your content, you've blended your comics and you've blended the cosmetics. So, how did that come about?
So, I was sitting at home on the floor doing my makeup, as ladies do. And I was also watching Bailey Sarian. She has a YouTube channel and podcast called Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Monday. She does her makeup while talking about cold cases and murder mysteries and ghost stories and stuff. So I'm sitting there doing my makeup, watching this, and Dave comes in and he sits down and he starts like really watching her. And he says, you know, Smurf, he calls me Smurf. He doesn't even know why. He just does. He says, you know, Smurf, you could do this. And I looked up at him. I was like, first of all, I don't know the first stinking thing about murder mysteries and cold cases. I just like the way she tells the story. And I like watching her do her makeup. And he said, no. I mean, like with your nerdy crap that you like, you could do this. You could like do your makeup, but talk about the stuff you like to talk, like the comic books and the TV shows and stuff. And I just kind of looked up at him. I said, I am middle-aged, overweight. I do not look like Bailey Sarian. Why would anyone want to watch me do my makeup? And he just looked at me like, I don't think that matters. Just talk about the stuff you know. You know a lot of stuff about it. So I really think the reason why he suggested this was he was just sick and tired of my shit. I'm sorry. He wanted me to have an outlet so he didn't have to listen to it anymore because it's not his bag, baby. He's into cars and typical manly man stuff, I guess. You know, he likes cars and guns and America, the sci-fi comic books. He really doesn't care about. I'll make him watch it with me, and then every 5 seconds I'm like, that's so and so from so and so, and they came from so and so, but they know so and so, and he's like, I don't care. I don't care. So he argues that no, I think you would be good at this. I think you should give it a try. And I was like, okay. I planned for about 2 years, like how I wanted to do it, what I wanted to talk about. And then I posted a breakdown about Wonder Woman. I did strictly breakdowns, I think, for a year. And then my computer imploded. Like I lost everything and I had to start over from scratch. And I was feeling very uninspired, as sometimes that happens. And I accidentally started making friends with some makeup artists and concept designers and actors. And I was like, well, I'll just interview people for a while. So for about a year, I just interviewed people. Like it keeps changing. So now the format is once a week. I cover everything you need to know in nerdy news because that's actually my big strength. I'm really good at the prediction stuff, and I know people who work in some of these places. So I'm very lucky to get some information that not a whole lot of people have from time to time. So I figure instead of just arguing with people on Twitter, I should just post the stuff I know and do my own like little news segment. So once a week we have This Week in Nerdy News, and then once a month I do the more complicated breakdown videos, which take me forever to do. I mean, it's so involved. I will write for about 2 weeks. I'll research and write for 2 weeks. And then it takes me anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to record. And then you're looking at a full week to edit. So I'd say about 60 hours total to edit one of those breakdowns. So that was really stressing me out. So I'm glad I'm doing that once a month now instead of once a week. That was like, I'm sorry, I went off again.
No, that's fine. That's why I don't do it. So that's pretty awesome. So when for our listeners, when they want to find you, how do they find you?
Well, it's super easy. I joke around that I'm like a venereal disease. I'm everywhere. You can't get rid of me. I'm on literally every single social media platform there is. Every single one. Blue Sky, Threads, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. All you have to do is search comics and cosmetics and I pop up. You'll see this logo.
Awesome.
And that's me. YouTube is just at comics and cosmetics. Everything is pretty much TikTok, everything comics and cosmetics, and you'll see me.
So for those of you in the listening audience, she held up a fetching logo off of her t-shirt. So do you have a store that they can go to?
Yes, I do. I have a TeePublic store, TeePublic/user/comics and cosmetics merch. I mean, if you just search comics and cosmetics merch, it should pop up. TeePublic always has those annoying long
right
URLs, but I've got over 30 designs on various things. So my favorite says I have to pee, because it's usually how I would end my live streams was with, okay, it's that time of the night where I have to pee. So it's time to go. Everyone has to go home.
That's pretty awesome. That's how Red Fox used to end his sets. He would.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. He used to say, I got to go to the toilet and walk off the stage.
Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah.
All right.
God,
so
love him.
It was awesome talking to you. Of course, I will have the links in the show notes. So let us transfer to our next segment. And we're going to go into the opening credit. So, Danielle, if you could tell the audience the movie we watched and a little bit about the movie.
Oh, buddy. So I'm really excited about the movie we're going to talk about because it is one of my top 5 favorite movies from growing up. It's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It came out in 1991. It is the first movie I owned on VHS that was 100% mine. It was not like a family movie. It was my movie, starring Kevin Costner, Christian Slater, the amazing Morgan Freeman, who I got the wonderful opportunity to meet once in my life. I love this movie. It's about Robin Hood. Kevin Costner did catch a lot of flack for his constantly changing accent and not actually doing a British accent all the way through. But I still loved it. Christian Slater is in it, and every woman my age had a massive crush on Christian Slater in the early 90s, in the 90s period. He was just gorgeous. So he played Will Scarlet. And Morgan Freeman, that is how I was introduced to Morgan Freeman. He plays Aziz. No, not Aziz. I'm thinking of Robin Hood Men in Tights.
That's okay. We actually have all of that in a notes later on.
But he's wonderful in it, and he's actually quite funny. But this was a big movie for my generation. I'd say Bryan Adams did the theme song to it. It was everyone's first middle school slow dance. It was everyone's wedding song. Everything I do it for you. That song is just, that's baby making music for 90s kids. So Robin of Locksley, he did his duty for king and country as a nobleman fighting in the Crusades, only to return to England to find that his father had been killed and his lands confiscated. Additionally, the plight of the common folk is dire, and the people are near starvation, all at the hands of the sinister Sheriff of Nottingham, played by Alan Rickman, who has its eyes on King Richard's throne. With his country in despair, Robin finds that he must continue to fight for his king, but as a hood.
Right. He's taking it straight to the hood. So this movie was released June 14th, 1991, produced by Warner Brothers and Morgan Creek Entertainment. It grossed over $165 million in the U.S. and Canada and over $390 worldwide on a reported budget of $48 million. Now, obviously, this is in 1991 dollars. So let's kind of shift the price of inflation. So if you consider the inflation, if it came out today, then the gross in the US and Canada would be $371 million, which is a decent haul. It's a decent haul. But worldwide, it grossed over $879 million in today's dollars. So that's almost a billion. That's very well respectable.
Take that, Barbie.
Right. Especially when you consider that this was made on in today's dollars, it was a budget of $108 million. So that is phenomenal. So it made like 3 times its budget in the first, well, not in the first week, but from the US and Canada. So it's already a hit in the US, and it's already a blockbuster. But then you tack on the worldwide grosses, and it's absolutely phenomenal. People around the world enjoyed this film.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
It's so much fun. It's definitely an enjoyable romp, I guess you would call it. I don't know what you would call it. It's enjoyable.
It is. It's a good time. And the other, you've got here that, it was second after Terminator 2. Terminator 2, this was a big year for movies. A lot of people don't remember this, but 91 was a huge year, like a historic year for these franchises. Well, Robin Hood didn't really be a franchise.
Yeah, it was. You're right.
Terminator 2, I saw both of these films in the theater, Terminator 2 at the drive-in, and they were packed. They were absolutely packed. And I mean, obviously Terminator 2 was the most anticipated film, but for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves to come so close to Terminator 2, that was huge. It's almost unheard of.
Yeah, especially since Robin Hood, even though it's based on like a popular story, it's not like a remake or a property that's it's not like a sequel to Robin Hood, right? It's its own Robin Hood movie. Mm-hmm. So that it was kind of an original story, and like it wasn't a sequel, and it made as much money as it did. That's also phenomenal. So we're going to talk about who starred in the movie. So first we have Kevin Costner. He plays Robin of Locksley. That's actually a difficult word to say. Robin of Locksley, also known as Robin Hood. He's also been in The Postman, which I kind of like. The Postman. I know that it to each his own, but I kind of liked it. Also, Dances with Wolves and The Bodyguard.
You also got, like I said, Morgan Freeman. Love him. He played a theme. He had been known for roles like Driving Miss Daisy at the time, but then he was in, you've seen him in Now You See Me in Oblivion since.
Yeah, he's a fantastic actor. There were times when I went to the movie to see Morgan Freeman. And then I didn't realize that he sang one of my favorite songs when I was growing up. So
what was it?
So Morgan Freeman, one of his early roles was one of the cast members of a show called The Electric Company. It was a kids show.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't know. It was like only in retrospect that I had a realization of who he was in The Electric Company. And he sang a song called Spin, Spin, Spin. And so he's a father. His kid asks him for some money. And then he goes on to this song about spending money. It's like, all you do is ask for money and spend, spend, spend. So that's what I remember from Sesame Street. So
that's wonderful.
Moving right along to our next one. Talk about names. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. I practiced it. That came out pretty good. She plays Marion Dubois. So what's funny about, or Maiden Mary. So what's funny about Mary Elizabeth is that she's like, there are not many people who are named Mary Mastrantonio, but she says, no, you will know me by all of my names. So you will henceforth know me as Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. So anyway, she's been in The Abyss, Scarface, and Class Action. I didn't even realize that was her in Scarface, even as I watched it.
Really?
And I knew who she was. And I'm looking, where is she at? Where is she? Oh, that's her, right?
That hair, man. I wanted her hair so bad.
Right. It's perfectly 80s
so
hair.
Beautiful. Then you have Christian Slater, who plays Will Scarlet. Oh, Christian Slater, he was a face in the 90s, let me tell you. In the 80s and 90s, I'll tell you something, Gleaming the Cube, man, Gleaming the Cube. He had been known for, of course, Gleaming the Cube, as I said, Hard Rain, Broken Arrow, 3,000 Miles to Graceland. That's a wild movie.
Right.
There.
And Broken Arrow, that was in episode 20, we covered that. That was one of my favorite films that he was
really
in. Yeah. He didn't say my favorite line in that film, but it's one of my favorite films that he was in. But he contributed it to it. Can you guess what that line is?
It's been so long, but I have a feeling as soon as you say it, I'm going to know exactly what it is, because I remember that there was a very specific line in this movie.
Right. There was a website named after it. So there's a line that, what's his name? John Travolta says, and he says, it was actually Christian Slater. He prompted the line. So he says, "You're out of your mind." And John Travolta answers, "Ain't it cool?" And
ain't it cool?
And thus was born Ain't It Cool News. So up next is Alan Rickman. He plays the Sheriff of Nottingham. You know what's interesting? I expected the character to actually have a name, but this is just a title. It doesn't have a name. And I was like, oh, that's a strange thing to do, because I think the impetus was to make it a little bit more realistic, I guess, to ground it a little bit more. So I figure in order to ground things, you would name things or give things proper names. And they didn't do it in this movie. He's the Sheriff of Nottingham. It's like he doesn't have any other names.
And honestly, in the theatrical cut, we don't know much about him as a person other than he's bad.
Right. That's exactly right. And we're going to talk more about that later on in the trivia. You've seen him in Die Hard. We covered that in episode 125. Also, Galaxy Quest and Love Actually.
Never seen that.
Neither have I.
I hear think I can live the rest of my life without it, honestly.
Right. I hear it's good.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, me too.
Then you have Geraldine McEwen. She played Mortiana, the witch. She is known for the Magdalene Sisters, Henry V, and The Love Letter.
I don't recall seeing any, I don't know about any of those movies. I think those are
I've seen Henry V,
right.
but that was ages ago.
Right.
And all I can remember is Kenneth Branagh.
But I think that, most of these are English films, and I'm pretty sure she's renowned in England, but I gotta say, she killed it in this movie.
Oh,
absolutely.
She was, sorry.
No, you're fine.
She did kill it. She was very scary, very creepy, very like old school witch. Scary. And just, she understood the assignment.
Right. Absolutely. She was witching it up. Then there's Michael McShane. He played Friar Tuck. You may have seen him in Office Space or Castle in the Sky. He was funny in this movie.
He was great. He was great. And so was Michael Wincott, who played Guy of Gisborne. This guy has made a career for himself as playing the sleazy, slick-backed villain. He's, he played basically the same kind of character in The Crow and Along Came a Spider. He was just this creepy, greasy-haired, just give me the heebs.
Right. He has definitely found his niche.
Yes, he has.
Up next is Nick Brimble. He played Little John, also known as John Little. That's funny. He's been in A Knight's Tale and Frankenstein Unbound. I don't remember him in A Knight's Tale, and I didn't see him in Frankenstein Unbound, but he was extremely charming in this movie.
He was. And in A Knight's Tale, he was actually the original Sir Ulrich that died.
Oh,
he was the knight that he was swiring for.
Right. Okay. That's why he's not in most of the movie. I get it now.
Right.
So
again, what you were kind of hitting the nail on the head with, he's a big British actor.
Right.
Done a lot of British films. And we have Sue Drouet, who played Fanny Little. She was Little John's wife. She's a hoot. I love her. There's one line she says in the film that I still say to this day. Hello, me lover. You've birthed 8 babies. Like, better be here minding the other 7. Like, I birthed 8 babies. I'm not going to stand around and watch one of them die, am I? Like, no, you're not, Fanny. You're stationed here.
Absolutely right.
She's known for a film known as The Craze.
Right.
I don't know that film. I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's definitely a British or UK film. It's most of her credits are in the UK, and like she's done and most of them are television. She's mostly a television actor. Like I think she's only done The Craze and this movie, and everything else is in television. And as a television actor, she's done a little bit of everything. Maybe a couple of episodes of Doctor Who. She's probably been in the Sherlock Holmes story.
I love Doctor Who.
She's in there. She's in all the TVs.
Yes. So this film was directed by Kevin Reynolds. I'm so sorry. My allergies are driving me crazy. It's directed by Kevin Reynolds, but he also directed Waterworld, which was also starring Kevin Costner, but did even worse than The Postman. Poor guy. It's become kind of a cult classic, though. It's really not that bad. It's just totally different.
I liked it when it first came out, and I was surprised that nobody else did.
Nobody knows how to have fun anymore.
Right.
But he directed Waterworld, The Count of Monte Cristo, Risen, Tristan and Isolde, and 187. So it's quite a mix there.
Yeah.
Quite an eclectic director.
Right. I like that. That he's done a bunch of different things, and some of them are more popular or more more consumable than others, I guess.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed Waterworld and The Count of Monte Cristo, and Risen looks interesting, even though I haven't seen it. I've heard great things about Tristan and Isolde, so
Oh,
yeah.
that's the original story of Romeo and Juliet, and that was starring Dave Franco and Sophia Myles. Sophia Myles was also in Doctor Who and Underworld, and I've gotten to speak with her a couple of times personally. We never did get to connect on the interview, but I'll leave it at that. And 187 was starring Morgan Freeman also, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't remember that movie. I remember actually. I remember a movie called 187, but I don't remember like any of the particulars because I didn't see it, so I don't remember like the trailer or who was in it or anything like that. I feel like, nope, not going to speculate because I don't remember. So moving right.
Thanks to rap music, we all know that 187 means murder.
Right. We all know that. Murder in California specifically.
Yeah.
So it doesn't apply to every single state.
That's true. LA, it means
right.
murder.
Probably just LA.
Yeah.
So moving right along, it was written by Penn Dersham and John Watson. So Dersham is responsible for movies like Larger Than Life and Moll Flanders, and Watson, he's written The Zoo Gang and A Gnome Named Norm. I think that's how you say that. But anyways, it's a funny play on words. I don't know any of these movies. I think they're all British movies. And, they came together, they wrote this, and they moved on basically to being producers and directors and whatnot. So they don't have like a robust writing credits, but I'm glad they came together to make this movie.
Story. Now, the music in this was dope. I'm just going to say the music in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, it's very evocative, very engrossing. It really, really grabs you. They nail the feel of this movie. It's definitely the color of the emotion of this movie. And I had the soundtrack. Of course I did. But the music was done by Michael Kamen, and he also did Event Horizon, which
I need to go watch that.
This is a scary movie. Event Horizon, Lethal Weapon. Love Lethal Weapon. 101 Dalmatians, the live action 1996. Mr. Holland's Opus. Great movie. Die Hard, also with Alan Rickman, and my favorite Christmas movie, Action Jackson. And then, of course, the great Bryan Adams wrote and performed the song Everything I Do for You, which went to the top of every single chart. It was the number one single of Adams's career. It maintained number one on the Billboard charts in the US for 14 weeks, but it also spent a record-breaking 16 weeks number one in the United Kingdom. And I'm pretty sure everyone my age had their first slow dance to that song. Everyone who got married for the next decade had their first dance to this song. This song is probably more historical and well-known than the actual movie. It transcended the film. And that was like the first time that it ever happened. It went insane. Not only did it go crazy on the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, Robin Hood Prince of Thieves soundtrack, but Adams was also allowed to put it on his new album, Waking Up the Neighbors, which I also got that year for Christmas. And that sent that album skyrocketing. So Bryan Adams owned the early 90s. It was because of the song. Like after this, you'll remember the Three Musketeers came out. Disney did the live action Three Musketeers. And for the soundtrack of that song, they wanted to strike gold again. So they hire Bryan Adams, who brings in Sting and Rod Stewart.
Right.
And they record All for One and One for All, which was equally massive. Like, I'm pretty sure Bryan Adams like retired right then and there. Like, I'm done it. It was a great career. I can't top that. My career is now at a close. So,
Right.
but no, Bryan Adams really, really killed it. When you watch the movie, you will hear notes of Everything I Do for You.
Yes.
Especially like when Marion and Robin in the scenes with them together, you'll hear the sting of that song layered in with the background music. And it's just
magnifique. And this is absolutely a great song. I've heard remakes of it. One of my favorite remakes is the one that Brandy does. And it's an undefeatable song. It gives you the chills every single time, seemingly no matter who sings it. So that's it for the opening credits. And for some announcements, we are still moving full steam ahead with the newsletter. And we're also giving away our Felix the Cat emoji t-shirt. And if you want a chance to win that t-shirt, just go on over to the website, www.backlookcinema.com, for the details. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you enter for a chance to win the t-shirt. Also, I've done this a couple of times now. By the time you hear this episode, I will have done this a few times. So on 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, I'm doing the Sunday morning snap where I play Marvel Snap on Twitch. And it's one of my favorite games. I'm going to do it anyway, so I might as well do it in front of a studio audience.
Doing that with Fortnite. You play Marvel Snap Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. on Twitch.
Right.
That's kind of cool.
Have you played Marvel Snap?
No, I've never played it. I just recently discovered Fortnite. And there was like 2 weeks where I had to force myself to get anything done around the house because I was just Fortnite.
Right.
Like, especially the Lego part.
Right.
And then my kid's like, Mom, that's basically Minecraft. That's what we've played since we were 5. And now you used to yell at us about it. And now I'm like, shut up, get out of my room. Nobody asked you.
Right. Yeah. I love games. So that's that. I mean, I play a bunch of different games, but that's my poison right now. So, I've decided to Twitch that. Just like I said, I'm doing it anyway. And hopefully, people will watch and enjoy me failing because I'm not good at it. I just like to do it.
That's why I'm afraid to, because I have Twitch, but that's why I'm afraid to, stream me playing games because I'm a middle-aged mom, dude. I'm going to play like a middle-aged mom.
Right. No, it's fine. It's totally fine. So that's it for the announcements. And let's go over to our next segment. We're going to talk about our favorite parts. Now, we're going to try to limit it to 5. And obviously, we could go on and on throughout the livelong day talking about everything. We want to be respectful of your time. You hear? We know you got other podcasts you want to listen to. We know you got to get on with your day. You just can't hear, sitting around listening to us yap about this fantastic movie. So, Dani, why don't you start us off on what's one of your favorite parts?
Well, I'll say Fanny. Fanny's one of my favorite parts.
Right.
Where she's sitting on the rampart with her bundle, where she's supposed to wait for the merry men so she can give them swords and bows and stuff. And this guard comes up and he's like, "Why, what you got here?" And she's like, "Oh, that's just firewood. I likes a good hanging, I do." And he's like, "You gotta move." She's like, "Oh, shit." And then Little John jumps up behind him and pushes him over the wall. And she just doesn't phase her or anything. She's like, "Hello, me lover." And just goes back about it. I love her for that. I don't know why I love that so much. "Oh, that's just firewood. Hello, me lover."
Right.
I don't know. I just love it.
She was so nonchalant about it. She was an absolute
She was.
natural when she was she and Little John and the whole merry men were invading the castle. So that was an excellent scene in that part. One of the things that I really liked about this movie, one of my favorite things was the costume. The costuming in this movie was, and it's like I can appreciate it now much better than I could appreciate it before. So like the design of the costume that Robin of Locksley was wearing, the design of the Merry Men, Will Scarlet in particular, they're like, well, his name is Scarlet, so we better put some Scarlet in there, right?
Oh, it was like the first time we watch a movie like this and the costumes were like legit.
Right.
Like they really, there was a huge chunk of that budget had to go to the costume department because they really put all kinds of effort into that. They really did.
Right. They were killing it.
Good for them. They did amazing.
Right. What's another one of your favorite parts?
Oh, well, you said Will Scarlet, and it just any scene with Will Scarlet. Will Scarlet is definitely one of my favorite characters in this movie. Christian Slater just kills it. And even though his accent wasn't exactly British, it was way better than Kevin Costner's, I'll say.
Right. His was way more subtle, and there were times when he would kind of fade in and out of his accent.
Well, yeah,
it was hard for him to be consistent.
There was one F-bomb.
Yes.
In this movie, and Christian Slater has it. Will Scarlet has it.
Right.
I couldn't really, like, I was really young. I was like 11, 12 years old when this movie came out. So the way he says it is so quick and subtle that you almost miss it. But when he's launching Azim and Robin in the catapult over the castle wall, he yells, "F me, they cleared it."
Right.
F me, they cleared it.
Right.
And I remember when it clued into my brain that it was actually the F word, and my parents still got me that movie for Christmas. I was like, oh, I snuck this one right by the parentals. Look at that.
Right.
But anything with him in it, him telling Robin, like, you really think he's going to be, he's betraying Robin. He's given everybody up just so he can be freed. He actually takes the opportunity to go back to Robin and tell them what happened. And then also say, oh, by the way, I'm your brother.
Right.
And you think Robin's going to flip out, but he's just so happy.
Well, he did kind of flip out a little bit.
That he has family after thinking he lost everyone. It just melts your heart for the Will Scarlet character.
Right. He flipped out a little bit. Like first he called him a liar, right?
Yeah.
and then when he had time to let it sink in, he was overjoyed.
Yeah, he's like, I have a brother.
Right. And so that was
you do.
I like that. I like the little twist that they put in the movie. I like that they it was like an attempt to add a little bit more depth into the classic legend of Robin Hood. So I really enjoyed that. And I do like Will Scarlet, like Christian Slater as Will Scarlet. I felt like we could have used more of him.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
One of my favorite parts was Robin and the telescope. So when Azim had a telescope, I like that Patrine is portrayed as both technologically and tactically advanced. Like he's way smart. It's like the what you call it, the the filmmakers had made an attempt to be socially conscious, because one of the things that I noticed, like when I first started the film, is like it starts with the Crusades, and it's like with all the things that events that are going in the world right now, it's like, oh, this it's not a good look, and I think the filmmakers were conscious of it even in that time, that it wasn't a good look, so they made sure to in a way praise. They didn't want to make villains out of people of different religions.
Had Desert Storm going on when this movie was filmed.
Right.
filled.
Yeah, I'm having problems with words too. I wanted to say the word vilify, but I couldn't find it. So they didn't want to vilify Arabs. They didn't want to vilify Muslim religions. They really wanted to
Right.
paint them as just opponents. And then
Right.
by adding the Azim character, and then by portraying him as like intelligent and
Oh,
advanced,
he
and
was so smart and so smooth and
right,
so
right,
honorable.
right, and
I
downright
loved him.
right,
Oh,
downright
did your
gentlemanly.
uneducated kind ever take Jerusalem? I'm
Right,
like, I
right,
don't know.
right.
What?
But yeah, so when Robin grabbed the telescope, he starts to stab the air with his sword.
Yeah, and he's looking through it like this, and
He thinks
just
that they're right in
yanks
front
it
of
out of
him.
his hand, like, knock it off, dum.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I really liked it. I really liked that they put that in there because like they wouldn't know about a telescope, or like a lot of people wouldn't know. So it's like Robin is just one of those guys that didn't know what a telescope was and what it could do.
Just it was pretty great. That would be my definite next favorite part, is any of the big Azim clips, especially I think the funniest part of the whole movie is when they're there at Maid Marian's. Like, they first get there and Robin goes in to talk to her, and it's just Duncan, who is blind, who's sitting outside. He's been blinded by the sheriff's men, and Azim, and Duncan, like, they're just standing there against the wall. Nobody's asked him to say anything. And Duncan says, "Curse all Moors and Saracens. If it wasn't for their ungodly ways, Master Robin would have never left. What manner of name is Azim? Irish? Cornish?" And then Morgan Freeman gets real close to him and he goes, "Moorish." He's like,
Right.
"Ah, gotcha. That's what you get.
Right,
That's
right.
what you get."
That's what you
Oh,
get.
it's so good. There are some absolutely phenomenal scenes with Morgan Freeman as Azim in this movie, when he's sitting in the Merry Men camp and he's, whittling, and this little girl comes up and she's just so sweet and innocent, and she says, "Did God paint you?" And he looks at her and he says, "Did God paint me?" And he says, "For certain, for Allah loves wondrous variety." And I thought that was just so touching. In
Right.
the extended cut, that scene is extended. There's more to it. Friar Tuck comes running up and grabs the little girl and just chastises Azim for talking about Allah to her.
Right.
Like, he flips out and he's like, "Don't you give her your devil talk." And he's like, "It's just God with a different name."
Right.
No. And then he totally saves Fanny and Fanny's baby's life by performing the first cesarean these people had ever seen before. And Robin's like, "Are you sure you know how to do this?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I've seen it many times in horses."
Right.
He's great. And then the connection between him and the witch, and that was another thing that got cut out of the theatrical cut, was there was more to it. He was having dreams about her, she was having dreams about him, and it had been brought up a couple times. I'm like, "The witch? What witch? Wait a minute, which one?" And then she's like, the painted man, the Moor." Like, they ask these questions repeatedly throughout the film, and then they meet and they're like,
Right.
and it's
See,
Morgan Freeman, man.
Right.
What a class act. I just love him.
Yeah, he's all of his scenes is like he's the star of that scene. So
that voice.
Right.
That voice is so soothing. So, fun fact, when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, we lived in Hawaii. We were stationed there, and he did a movie called The Big Bounce that was filmed there on the North Shore, and they decided to do a premiere there on post. So I got free tickets because I worked for the Army Air Force Exchange Service, and I freaking left work early and I headed over there like 8-9 months pregnant with my daughter, and he walks by and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Azim." I was so excited, and I said hi to him. He says hi back and he gestures at my belly and he goes, may I? And I said, please. So he touches the top of my belly and he says, I've always thought that pregnant women were the most beautiful. And I was just, oh my God. So my daughter, who is now 20 years old, tells everyone that she was blessed by Morgan Freeman in the womb, and that's why she has such a soothing voice.
That's pretty awesome. That's an excellent story.
He's wonderful. I love him.
That's awesome. So, one of my favorite parts, I mean, I absolutely love all of the Morgan Freeman stuff, but I want to bring it over to Alan Rickman. So,
yes,
my favorite part, my favorite line in the movie is, the spoon comments. So and so
it'll hurt more.
So basically, it's like I didn't realize it was like the only thing that I truly remember is at first was when he says, "I'll carve your heart out with a spoon." I remember that part. But then it kind of continues. So his cousin asks him why a spoon, and like you said, so it'll hurt more. You idiot!
Yeah, it's dull. You tweet, it'll hurt more.
And then when he finally kills his cousin, because his cousin is incompetent, he says, at least I didn't use a spoon.
Well, at least I didn't use a spoon. And then he kind of holds the sword up and he's like, it's good steel.
Right. Yeah, because he's in a factory. He's in a factory and he takes one of the swords that have just been finished. And that's what he used to skewer his cousin.
Cold-blooded.
It's crazy. It's like his cousin's always coming and talking about how he messed up. It's like, oh, Robin got away. Oh, we got beat up by his merry men. Oh, and it's like you can only tell the sheriff of Nottingham something like this so many times.
And Alan Rickman is just he's amazing at what he does. He is absolutely amazing at what he does. And he plays that super hyper intelligent, permanently exacerbated villain. Like it's he was born for it. He's amazing. Like I've heard he's just a kind and considerate, funny, thoughtful person in life when he was alive. Oh gosh, it's so sad that he's gone. But he hated being typecast as this villain. You know, once he played Hans Gruber and he just killed it. Like, it's not Christmas in my house until he falls from Nakatomi Plaza. But he did such a good job that he started only getting offered these villain roles.
Right.
But he was so good at it.
Right.
He was so good. Sheriff of Nottingham is one of the most recognizable roles for him. He just, because it's dull, you twit to the hurt more. Like everybody knows that because it's just his delivery is just classic. Why a spoon?
Right.
Why not to dagger? Like,
yeah, he didn't quite get it. His cousin didn't quite get it.
Guy of Gisborne, you dummy.
So, what's your next favorite part?
I mean, you've already said Alan Rickman, and I just love him so much. But just the action sequences. I mean, you remember the trailer, right? Everyone wanted to see this movie for one reason and one reason only. And it was that close-up shot following the arrow.
Right.
Like Kevin Costner as Robin Hood fires an arrow, and the camera, it does it a couple of times. Like, you first see it in the trailer as there's flames around him and he's firing this arrow in slow motion and you can see it coming towards the camera. And then there's another time where he fires it and the camera follows it in flight until it meets its target. And that was so cool for 1991. Like, you have no idea how cool and how technically difficult challenging it was for them to pull off that shot. It hadn't really been done before. And the sound that accompanied it, it was those scenes, the cinematography, the direction, the editing in this movie is top notch. And it's all done in a way that keeps you 100% engaged. It has some of the best rewatchability of any movie I've seen because of it. So the action scenes, I mean, when he's in the prison in Jerusalem, and he's getting ready to get his hand cut off, and he pulls the rope forward and chops he does it so fast and so smoothly in the way they've shot it. You barely know what's happened until the guy's holding a bloody stump and screaming. But he did such a good job on the direction of this film. There's just enough romance. There's the only nudity is Kevin Costner's butt for a half second. So these days there's so much gratuitous sex. There's no mystery to it. There's no chance to let your imagination wander or develop your own idea. There's no mystery to it whatsoever. Robin Hood had that. You had this amazing romantic tension between Robin and Maid Marian, but you only see them kiss like twice in the whole movie. They pulled it off. I mean, just absolutely beautifully. It doesn't get the respect it deserves for that simple fact. The romantic tension that was built up between these characters, and it was based entirely on conversation. Conversation. So you had the perfect amount of crazy, exciting action and amazing cinematography, romance, buddy cop. Like, it had everything. So yeah, everything of the movie is my favorite. No, the direction, the editing, the post-production, really, the behind the scenes stuff. It's one of the best films from that era regarding behind the camera work. It's really, really, really phenomenal. It's not, everyone focuses on Kevin Costner not doing a British accent properly, when really, I mean, you should be paying attention to literally everything else.
Right. It actually, we'll forgive some people and their accents, and then we'll chastise other people and their lack of accents or whatever. And it's just that's just the way of it,
Yes, the way the beast.
Right. And I would say that my last favorite part is the Will Scarlet reveal, but we kind of covered that, basically everything with Will Scarlet, so we don't have to get too deep in that. But yeah, that reveal was pretty good. So yeah, this is a fantastic movie. You really eloquently covered why we love this movie so much, and I really appreciate that, because you're right about everything, of course. And to be fair, about like only kissing twice in a movie, they were kind of fighting each other at first. It was it took a minute for them to, especially for Marion to
right,
to warm up to Robin. It took a minute,
because like she said, he was just her dumb brother's friend,
right?
Just
right.
spoiled
And then he was
burn my hair.
Yeah, he was messing with her all the time. He was the type of dude that, or at least when he was growing up, that when he liked a girl, he would punch her in the face.
No, stupid boys, silly boys.
So
he was a big fan of negging.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are our favorite parts of the movie, and we're going to transition to talk about the top 10 trivia. So, these are like some of my favorite points of trivia that I picked up from IMDb. So, and fortunately, it was all there. I didn't have to go too far outside of that. There were some things that I picked up, but not a whole bunch. So, start us off on some of the trivia that I picked up.
Well, I was talking about Alan Rickman and how great he was in The Sheriff, and how he kept getting villain roles. Well, he initially turned down the role twice before he went ahead and accepted. He was told he was holding out for the opportunity to have more of a carte blanche with the character. He wanted to be able to truly make the sheriff his own. So he just kept letting him come back and ask him until they're like, all right, you can do whatever you want with the character. He's like, okay.
And
I'll do it.
It worked out for him because
in
the next piece of trivia, it said Rickman's famous line of Locksley, I'm going to cut your heart out with a spoon, was an improvisation. He had found his character's dialogue to be bland and one-dimensional, so was always looking for ways to make it more interesting and amusing. Interestingly, Costner does not break character during the scene despite the improvisation, and the inclusion of it resulted in another scene providing explanation. So that was I don't know why I wrote that. that last bit doesn't make any sense, but
it happens.
But yeah, it was a cool line is what I meant to write. But at any rate, as we go on in the trivia, we'll see how much Rickman added to this character of the Sheriff of Nottingham.
This was definitely one of my favorite parts of the film, this next bit of trivia. And it is something that I have said to my children multiple times. I have quoted it. He ad-libs a line about calling off Christmas. Some of the sheriff's witty lines, such as telling a couple of wenches, you, my room, 10:30 tonight, you, my room, 10:45, and bring a friend, were devised by Rickman's friend, comedian Ruby Wax, and playwright Peter Barnes. Director Kevin Reynolds enabled these script alterations by not informing the producers or screenwriters or anyone in the crew whatsoever. Rickman said in an interview years later that he knew these new lines were having the desired effect when during takes he noticed crew members covering their mouths trying not to laugh.
Right.
But the Christmas line, he finds out that his scribe is telling him it. He's like, well, fine. He tells the scribe, raise the bounty to 25,000 crowns. And he's like, 'twon't do any good, sire. And he's like, why not? And he's like, well, the people, you see, he gives them what he takes, so they love him for it. And he's like, so let me get this straight, okay? He steals from my pocket, forcing me to hurt the people, and they love him for it? He's like, that's it. No more merciful beheadings. No more alms for the poor. And he starts to walk out of the room, turn around, he goes, and cancel Christmas. Walks right back out. I'm like, it doesn't really make sense because at the time they didn't really celebrate Christmas like you would think. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't. Easter was the big holiday,
right.
Not Christmas. That's relatively new thing in terms of history, but it's still hilarious.
Yeah, it is definitely hilarious. And coincidentally, I remember I said I didn't know why I wrote that last bit, and I remember why I included it. So it's cool. So what happened was, like, because Rickman had added that line, carve your heart out with a spoon, they had to make an explanation for it later. And so later when the dude asked why a spoon, cousin, because I think they knew that the audience would ask that question. So the cousin is being the proxy for the audience of why use a spoon to carve a heart out. And I
love that then Rickman gets to be himself and call us a bunch of twits for not knowing.
Right, because it'll hurt more. Right. So, I mean, I got it immediately. It didn't have to be explained. I knew that's what it would do. I knew that having your heart carved out with a spoon would hurt tremendously. So
you have to work harder and it's going to take longer.
Right. So moving right along. Tristan Slater ad-libbed Will Scarlett's line, "Fuck me, he cleared it," after Robin and Nazim are catapulted over the castle wall. Kevin Reynolds kept it in the movie because it was funny. despite the historical inaccuracies. But was it inaccurate? So the term fuck as is akin to the Dutch folken, that is to breed. And they're talking about breeding cattle specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from the Swedish dialect as folka. And that actually means to copulate. And its first known use as fuck was in the 14th century. And that's like the 1300s. So the tales of Robin Hood appeared in the 13th and 14th century. So, and that's like with it written down. So the adventures of Robin Hood, the actual adventures occurred in the 12th century. So it's conceivable that they may have started actually saying that word in the 12th century. And then when they got to writing it down, they discovered the earliest writings in the next century, the 13th century. So it's possible. It could have been saying it.
Could have totally said, fuck me, clean it.
It could have did it.
Oh, that's so good. I did not know that. That's wonderful. God love you, Christian Slater.
Right.
Carrie Elways was actually the first one offered the role of Robin Hood. What a different movie that would have been.
Right.
He turned it down, though, because he thought the plot was too contrived. He did, however, portray the character in the spoof Robin Hood Men of Tights, which I brought up earlier. And I think it's funny that he did that. And, there was stuff like really cut out that I really feel like they should have left in. It would have made a lot more sense. But I can't see the movie without Kevin Costner, even though he's not exactly a world-class classical actor like Alan Rickman. Put those two up against one another. That was
right.
That's kind of funny. But I at this point, can you really see Carrie Elways as Robin?
We sort of do, because he did play Robin Hood in a spoof movie, so it's really doable. I can imagine him as a more serious Robin Hood, but I've only seen him as kind of a playful character. So like he's been in like most people know him from The Princess Bride. Mm-hmm. So and he's kind of like a playful character. He was in
Saw.
Oh, well,
the first Saw movie.
I don't watch Saw.
I don't either. You want to know why? I am missing my right foot. And of course, at the end of Saw, Carrie Elways has to saw off his right foot. I'm like, nope.
Right.
Too close to home.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing that I did see Saw 2, and Saw 2 is the reason that it's like after watching Saw 2, I was like, well, I don't have to watch any more Saw movies.
Yeah, that's too much.
I get it. I get it. Absolutely.
No thanks.
Right. No thanks. So moving to the next one, as Robin, Azim, and Duncan flee from Marian's, they pull up their horses before entering Sherwood Forest. Kevin Costner's horse half-reared as he halted, and the horse's neck came up so fast it smacked into and broke Kevin Costner's nose. According to DVD commentary, he did not miss a beat and continued with the scene. So,
dang, Kevin Costner.
Yeah,
dang.
Tough dude. He's a tough dude. Well, could Elway do that? Could he?
Can you do that, Wesley?
Right. Could he get smacked in the face? Well, knowing him, he probably handles a horse better, so he probably wouldn't have had the difficulty with that horse that Kevin did.
Kevin Costner to me just feels like a normal dude that somehow got into acting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're gonna love the next bit of trivia.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna love this bit. Rumor has it that Kevin Costner actually wanted to use an English accent, but Kevin Reynolds didn't want him to. Supposedly, Costner would affect the accent when he was arguing with Reynolds, but not when they were in agreement. Costner claims that he was initially asked to use an accent and hired a dialect coach, but this was stopped and the coach was fired when he did it poorly. And that's what I heard, that he was just really bad at it.
Right.
Like, even though he had a dialect coach and everything, and he really sucked at it. And he did like, he wasn't, I think what it was, he wasn't doing the proper BBC English accent that they wanted. They wanted this, proper BBC is what they call that.
Right.
He was doing more of a Cockney, South London chav accent. Like when he's playing the beggar, he's like, "Oh, pardon me, sir, I'm always falling."
Yeah, that's right. He did do the accent one time.
In his mouth. That's that Cockney South London chav accent.
Right.
And that's not what they wanted. He just couldn't do the proper BBC English, and they were like, "Okay, you know what?"
And I think the reason is because he's supposed to be an upperclassman. He's supposed to be a nobleman.
He's a nobleman.
So
you can't have a low class accent and play a nobleman, because we're all looking at you like,
right.
You're gonna pick my pockets. Little urchin. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that was the one time he used the accent when he was in disguise. I forgot about that. So up next, no mention is made of John the Younger, brother of Richard the Lionheart. John was the de facto ruler of England from 1190 to 1194, not 1900s, 1190 to 1194, while Richard was away fighting in the Third Crusade. However, John did not become the de jure king of England until Richard was killed in a battle in 1199. In many of the Robin Hood legends, the Sheriff of Nottingham was a loyal follower of John. And that's interesting because in this movie, it gives you the impression that the sheriff was actually after the throne himself. Like he wanted to be the king of England.
They took the two characters of the evil Sheriff of Nottingham and the Weasley Prince John and mashed them together.
Right. That would have been, I don't know. I think I would have liked to see that movie, but I think at that time it was like too many characters, so they decided not to.
They were like, "Look, we've already had Carrie Elways tell us no. Alan Rickman's told us no twice. We really cannot risk it."
Right.
On an episode of the Arsidio Hall show, Christian Slater mentioned that he learned and mastered archery after Morgan Freeman taught him on set.
Man. So we have multi-talented Morgan Freeman.
That's so awesome. Like most kids our age at that time, I watched Robin Hood. I'm like, well, I think I want to learn how to do archery. And in, middle school gym, they actually used to do archery.
Right.
And I was dang good at it too, man. I was good. But imagine if I had Morgan Freeman teach me on set. That would be amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. And that's pretty awesome. I'm glad to see like people like working together so to make the best story possible. So that's pretty cool as also. So and the last bit of trivia number 10. This movie was one of the few Hollywood productions of recent years to receive praise from Jack Sheehan, a longtime Arab American activist whose book, Real Bad Arabs, lashed out at all of the perceived examples of motion pictures that contain insulting and inaccurate views of Arabs and Muslims. Shaheen wrote that Morgan Freeman's portrayal of Azim was very positive, and that Azim was portrayed as a devout Muslim and an intelligent, decent man who fights against the vile Sheriff of Nottingham. Sheehan also liked the way Robin Hood indirectly praised Muslim natives during the Crusades by saying, "One man defending his home is worth more than 10 hired soldiers." And so,
yes.
Yeah, I noticed that. And it was, and I appreciated that. And I think they were sensitive to that because, as you alluded to earlier, that there was the Middle Eastern war going on. This was before 9/11, but there's always stuff that's going on in the Middle East.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Look, Vanilla Ice received an MTV award and said peace in the Middle East.
Right,
Like
right, right.
that was the thing. Everyone was saying peace in the Middle
Right,
East.
right, right, right.
You kids today do not hold the authority on that. We've been doing it for years. Our parents were doing it.
Right.
Okay. It's been going on for centuries. And we did have the Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm going on with, we were looking for Saddam Hussein, and he was a dictator at the time.
Right.
Kids these days, Google it. So I think they were very concerned about making a general blanket statement about the entire area, because there are multiple countries, principalities, and cultures and religions in that area. You can't do that. It's just not right.
I mean,
that's like lumping the Irish, the Scottish, and the English together and calling them all British. Like,
right. Yeah.
That's not.
And at the time, yeah. And at the time, like, we were like, as far as the first Gulf War, it was the U.S. that was trying to liberate Kuwait from the advances of Iraq. So Iraq was trying to invade Kuwait, and the U.S. sent troops there to prevent that from happening. And that was the first war. And then I think Saddam Hussein was kept in power, but they put no-fly zones in certain areas of Kuwait to kind of prevent Saddam Hussein from, like,
well, then eventually he just went into hiding.
Right. But to prevent him from killing the, some of the Kurds in Iraq and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's always different kinds of conflict going on over there. So yeah, peace in the Middle East was a big thing that they were saying back in the 90s. And filmmakers were really sensitive with how they wanted to portray. Well, at least some filmmakers were sensitive about how they wanted to portray Muslims and Arabs. And Jack Sheehan, he was like Shahan. I'm saying it wrong. I keep saying it wrong. I think it's Shaheen, right? And so Jack Shaheen was like, he rightly praised this film for, trying to portray Muslims in a positive light.
Well, showing that both sides have their good points, as people.
Right. Right.
Both sides have good points and not so great points. I mean, that's just people in general.
Well, they're human beings. They're not cardboard bad guys. I think that's what it is. And he
made them multi-dimensional.
Right,
He made them multi-dimensional characters instead of just one-dimensional bad guys.
Right. Because the thing is that, like, there are certain movies where you would have an undefined bad guy, and there would be an undefined Middle Eastern bad guy. So, like, I think Top Gun was one of those movies. But the movie I tend to think about is
bad guy.
Is what's it called? Iron Eagle, which actually came out before Top Gun. And Iron Eagle, you have the undefined Middle Eastern bad guy, and they're all basically cardboard villains. And and Robin Hood wanted to do more than have cardboard villains. So yeah, that's
when
worthy
you educate and entertain.
Right. So that's it for the trivia, and now we're going to take a look at what the critics thought. All right, so the critics gave it a 51%, audience gave it a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes, big disparity, and IMDb reviews, it's 6.9 out of 10, so that's closer to what the Rotten Tomatoes audience says.
Yeah, don't listen to the trades, especially Rotten Tomatoes. They pay people. They've been busted for it.
Well, it's like,
watch for yourself.
The thing about it is that it was like one specific incident over one specific, like, company, and what they did was what happened was they paid like certain reviewers either to not review a movie if they didn't like it, or if they did like it, then they review it and put it on Rotten Tomatoes. So they were trying to manipulate it, and it worked in like one specific instance. So there was like one movie that Daisy Ridley was in that nobody knows about, and it was like a 59%, which would give it a Rotten. And so this company, using its techniques, they were able to raise it to a 60%. But it's like the effect was not, was not great, right? It's not like the movie started making money or anything. I think the only thing that raising it to 60% did was it got studios to like buy and distribute the film. That's all it really did, because the movie didn't have a distributor. So they point to that incident, and there may have been a couple of others, but I don't think like it's a huge problem. And I'll say what like most people like to say is like, go to a reviewer that you trust and know, and read their reviews or kind of read their blogs.
Yeah, and what I always say on my program and when I talk about this stuff is, you know what, go see it for yourself.
Right. And the other
I'm not you.
Right.
And see it for yourself.
And the other thing is like, I always pay more attention to the audience scores anyway. That like the IMDb scores, the audience scores, they tend to agree with each other. And so because they tend to, and the other thing is that as far as like when there is a huge disparity like between the audience and critics, that basically tells you that the critics are watching it on a different level than what the audience is. The audience is entertained, and that's all. Like the critics are going, they don't like the accent, they don't like the story, they don't like the special effects or whatever, and the audience are just entertained and they're fully enjoy it, and that's what causes this disparity. But I'm using that word a lot. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right. But we're going to go ahead and talk about the first review. We're talking about looking at reviewers that you know. I don't know any of these reviewers. I know one of them, but I picked some out to give our audience a sense of what people are thinking about this movie. So Marjorie Baumgarten from Austin Chronicle wrote, "The only redistribution of wealth engaged in by this Robin Hood occurs at the box office when you hand over your money for admission. What a large scale mess this is." She didn't like it. I don't think she liked it.
Someone needs to go back to bed and start over.
Desan Thompson from the Washington Post wrote, "Fair damsels and noble sirs, you must free yourselves of these wearisome observations. This is a state-of-the-art retelling of a classic." Nice. So he kind of enjoyed it. What about the next two?
Roger Ebert, the Chicago Sun-Times, said Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is a murky, unfocused, violent, and depressing version of the classic story with little of the lightheartedness and romance we expect from Robin Hood. I disagree.
Not only do I disagree, but I don't. It's like he watched a completely different movie. It's like, it's not even depressing. What are you talking about?
Depressing. Well, yeah, his dad got slaughtered and hung up and smeared as a Satan worshiper. But then he fixes it and it's a happy ending and they get married and Sean Connery shows up. Like, how are you depressed by the end of this movie, bud?
Right. In order for a hero to rise, something bad has to happen. You're not just robbing from the rich and giving to the poor because everything is hunky-dory. It's like, I guess he expected that Robin Hood would go robbing from the rich because it's a hobby, or just for lulz.
Have you read the actual classic tales of Robin Hood? There's some pretty freaking depressing times they're living in, bud. They needed Robin Hood to do those things. Okay. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know.
Alex Sandel, Juicy Cerebellum, said it wasn't exactly an epic, but it was entertaining, and that's good enough.
Absolutely. I think that hits the spot. That review. That's funny. That it's not Lord of the Rings, but you'll be fine.
No. And again, I really feel like you guys have got to watch the extended cut, the director's cut, whatever it's called. I don't even know how, like, I just typed in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves and clicked on the first one. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember this scene. Like, there's a scene where he's with all the nobles and they're all wearing robes, white robes, around a pentagram or a pentacle, and they're all devil worshippers. And then it shows him actually paying them. And they're like, this bag of gold is light. He's like, this Robin Hood dude, I'm sorry. Stuff that would have made a lot of things more cohesive, I think, for critics and reviewers. So I'm stunned. I think they took it out because they thought it was going to be too long. It was like 2 hours. It was almost a 3-hour movie with the extra scenes, but it was really good. And it made sense to me. I think they should have left him in.
Yeah. One of the things about having long movies is that theaters don't necessarily like long movies. So they're trying to get audiences in and out as quickly as possible. Right.
And especially back then. People went to the movies a lot.
Right.
In the 90s. Like there wasn't a whole lot for us to do.
Right.
So going to the theater was an event. It was a big, big deal. Not so much anymore. So they really did want you in and out more because they had a much higher turnover.
Right. So that's it for What the Critics Thoughts. Finally, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is, as of this recording, available on streaming. That's it for today. In a fortnight, we'll be back with another exciting movie from yesteryear. It will be yet another beloved action-adventure flick, but older and far darker. So I hope you join me for my special guest, Wes King from Filmsomniacs podcast and Wes Talks Movies on TikTok for, well, I wrote Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, but that's not what we're watching. We're watching Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. That's what we're watching.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, action, adventure, and darker, just like I promised. So you can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, or Threads at Backclick Cinema. If you post on any of those platforms, I will do my best to respond. But at least you know that you can find me anywhere just by looking for at Backclick Cinema. And then if you want to email us with any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can do so at fanmail@backclickcinema.com. So my special guest, Dani, do you have any additional plugs?
Well, yes, actually. Like I said, you can find me on YouTube and social media at Comics and Cosmetics. I also have a website, comicsandcosmetics.squarespace.com. And on that website, you can find all of my reviews and a passion project that I have been working on for the last almost 2 years with Academy Award-winning special effects artist and designer Brian Sipe. It's called the Belgian Project. We are trying our hardest to improve the lives, to save the lives of amputees all over this planet. Did you know that prosthetics is considered medical equipment? That's it. Durable medical equipment. No different than a pair of crutches. It's insane. Insurance sees it as a luxury, not a necessity. And the suicide rate for amputees because of their prosthetics is 4 times higher than the average American. And 4 times higher than that are women amputees. So we are trying to change this perception in the medical world. We are trying to prove that we can make realistic, custom-made prosthetics that are also comfortable, but we need help. You can help by going to comicsandcosmetics.squarespace.com. Click on the Belgian Project. You will see a quick little documentary on how it got started, some information for you, and you can even donate to the project. So find me on all social media as Comics and Cosmetics. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps out so much. And check out comicsandcosmetics.squarespace.com to find the Belgian Project.
Right. I was just talking to an associate about how messed up, really, the medical establishment is in this country. Right. How it would be so much better if it were a different way, like closer to what they have in Canada or in Europe, or
you have to be careful with that. Because a lot of the problem we have right now is that the government is so involved with the medical industry. So it creates a problem where there is no competition. So physicians, prosthetists, whatever, people in the medical industry can charge whatever they want. They can charge as much as they want, whatever they want. They can deny insurance because they can. There's no competition. And it's the government. It is the actual government that has established that prosthetics are no different than a pair of crutches.
Right.
It's the United States government. So what would really need to happen to rectify a lot of this is the government stay out of it so that doctors and prosthetists can create competition between each other, and it would lower prices. Like, oh, well, I'll charge you less than this doctor or what have you. And it would give them freedom to treat people who need treated. Right now, I've needed a knee replacement for about 5 years, and I can't get it because I have government medical insurance, and they say I have to do all this other stuff first. It's been going on for 5 years.
Right.
5 years. And it's a secondary condition from my prosthetic, from the fact that I'm an amputee.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. That's a whole other podcast, so I won't take up all the time about it. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and amputees are dying over it, and nobody has paid any attention to it whatsoever. So that is a big part of my life, a huge passion project for me, a personal project. And if anyone would share that information, hashtag the Belgium Project, just check it out. There's the documentaries on my YouTube as well. The more eyeballs we can reach with this, the better.
Right. Absolutely. So I definitely encourage everyone to check it out. I shall check it out and see what little I can do. Write my congressman. I've been itching to write one of those letters.
There you go.
So one last time, Dani, tell the audience your name and where they can find you again.
I'm Danielle Soncasie, licensed cosmetologist and registered super nerd. And once a week, you can find me on YouTube at Comics and Cosmetics, telling you all the hot goss, juicy deets, deleted tweets you missed in the nerdy world that week. And once a month, you will find me breaking down whatever nerdy topic I've been obsessing about that week, either a character, a storyline, a comic book, a movie, what have you. I've even broken down some Game of Thrones stuff, but I'm doing my makeup or a cosplay at the same time. So find me on YouTube at Comics and Cosmetics. You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch. I don't know, pick a social media. I'm probably there. My merch store is at tpublic.com. And for all of that information, for examples of my work, for my videos, for reviews, for the Belgium Project, please check out comicsandcosmetics.squarespace.com.
That is awesome. And I know that you've enjoyed, Dani. So please go check all that out. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe, share a movie with your loved ones, enjoy a movie from yesteryear with your family, give everybody a hug. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.